Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Ali Ingersoll. Roaches, water damage, fly infestations. These are all recorded complaints against one apartment complex in Durham. WRAL Investigates found more than 100 complaints just like that in 1 year. And our investigative journalist, Sarah Krueger, is here to talk with me about her reporting. Hey, Sarah, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So let's start with the building itself. What is this building like, and what did you see when you went in there?
So when I first got there, I noticed there was construction out front. You know, there were some dumpsters and some fencing. So there was clear indication that some work was happening either inside or outside the building. And also, I should mention, as soon as we got there, parked and started walking in, someone who worked for the management company in some capacity immediately came up to us, tried to tell us we couldn't be there. There was immediately a very defensive approach to us being there, very concerned about our presence. And, you know, I've done enough stories to know that if we are invited in by a resident, we are allowed to be there in that resident's apartment. And so I told him that. We met this resident. And in the hallway, you know, there were clear signs of disrepair. There was carpet torn up and things like that. Once we got to this resident's apartment, things looked very new. It had just been remodeled. He just moved in, but there were problems that were not immediately apparent to the eye.
You said you were welcomed in by a resident. His name is Joshua Allen. Tell me his story.
So he has lived in JFK Towers for about 5 years, and he lived most of that time in a different unit, but he told me he just moved into this new unit only a few weeks ago, and had higher hopes since it had been remodeled.
In the evening time when I cut the light on, there's a big pile of roaches everywhere.
And the main issue that he was really having, there were, a few things like some paint chipping and a door handle that wasn't working. He felt like that was unacceptable given that he was the first one to live in that newly remodeled unit. But also very problematic to him is what he describes as a roach infestation. He said that he would come home and there would just be piles of roaches. He'd find them in his kitchen. He'd find them in his shower. And his apartment was very clean. And, someone who clearly takes pride in their belongings and in keeping things clean. But he said no matter what amount of cleaning he does, the roaches just keep coming back.
That has to be really frustrating for him that he is putting in the effort, but still they're there. Mm-hmm. So as you said, he had lived there before. It was not like he just moved in there, lived there for several years before that. What did he say about the changes he saw over time to the building?
Do you think it's nice in here?
I don't think so.
So I asked him if he felt like his problems were getting solved now that he had a new unit, if things were getting better. And he said no, he's really had issues since living there. And the roaches clearly really upset him and disturbed him to the point that he told me he is actually trying to move out of JFK Towers and he's hoping to move into public housing instead. He feels like that would be a better option for him. He's also frustrated because he says that he reports his issues that he's having to management and nothing is being done about them. So he just really feels like he keeps hitting dead ends.
So a little more about Joshua. How exactly did you find him?
So he called into the WRAL Investigates tip line, and we always appreciate when people do that. I listen to all of those messages that we get there, and he was just feeling so frustrated after not getting help from management that he wanted to take it a step further, and he reached out to us, and he was really grateful that we were able to come and talk to him, and he's hoping that things will improve for him and for the other residents there.
Who are some of the other residents there, and why did you feel it was so important to tell their stories, dig deeper into this issue?
Yeah, so this building is only for those with disabilities or those who are seniors, and it's geared toward low-income residents. So the rent there is adjusted based on the tenant's income. And so it, houses some of Durham's most vulnerable people. It's in North Durham. It's been around for a long time. It's changed management companies, and it's something we've been reporting on for a long time, too.
And we will talk more about that and the long time reporting on that, as well as this isn't the first or only complaint about that after this break. Welcome back. So, Sarah, you have been Durham-based for quite a while now. You've done stories on this complex before as well. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so our WRAL team over the years has done many, many stories. It's a place that we often hear about from residents.
The nastiness around here makes no sense.
That elevator there, that's a death trap.
Her air conditioner leaks water.
We get a lot of calls into our newsroom, a lot of emails. There have been issues at JFK Towers for years. Things like backed up sewage, water leaks, broken elevators, and all of that is especially hard to hear about and to see since we know that JFK Towers does house some of Durham's most vulnerable residents. And we know that the management company, which is Millennia Housing Management, they have run into problems for this building and for others in other states that they manage. So some of the JFK Towers tenants, including Joshua that I spoke with for this latest story, they are suing Millennia with the help of a Duke Law Clinic working with Duke professors and Duke students. And we reported on that pretty recently. And then Millennia is also the subject, we've reported, of a federal investigation into possible mismanagement of security deposits and taxpayer funds. So Millennia owns or manages properties, not just in Durham, not just in North Carolina, but beyond that as well.
So a lot going on with that one management company. Looking into this issue right now, the story that you heard from Joshua, you then went on and you filed records request with the city, right?
Yeah, I did. So, I had just heard from so many residents over the years here about issues that I wanted to see what kind of documentation the city had about this building. So back in November, actually, I filed a records request with the city of Durham, and it took months. It took a really long time, and I just got the results of that record request back, which was for the number of violations that the building had had from the past year. So I filed this in November. So it was November 2022 to November 2023 that I had asked for, and it just so happened that right when I got these records back from the city is when I heard from Joshua, and so just was able to piece those things together. And what the record showed is that in that 1 year span, there were 182 code violations with the city.
182, right? I heard you correct. Just really want to
182 for one single building.
That's really wild. What was there anything really shocking in those?
So I think, the volume itself really surprised me. It was a very long Excel spreadsheet. And then the violations that I saw in there were about water leaks, trash chutes filling up and attracting gnats and flies. One that I saw quite often was no smoke detectors in sleeping areas. That one came up pretty frequently. And, after I got this, and actually at the same time I filed this request, I had asked if the city had issued any fines for these violations, and they didn't answer that part initially. So, I went back to them and said, okay, what about the fines? Have there been any fines? And the city told me no, that there have not been any fines for JFK Towers or for the management company. And they explained that, saying that they felt like progress was being made toward repairs, and that is why they have not issued any fines.
So what about Joshua? Let's circle back to him, right? Does he feel like there's progress, and how does he feel now that you're looking into this?
He does not feel like there's progress, and certainly not enough progress. I think the frustration stems from the ongoing issues, but then the lack of action as he perceives it from the management company. So I think, his frustrations are deep-seated and have been going on for years. In terms of the management company, of course, I reached out to them prior to this story running, and they sent me a statement, which I'll look at and kind of summarize. But basically, they said since acquiring the property in 2019, that they have, from the previous owner, that they've invested about $35 million into the building to try to improve the condition of the units and improve safety. So the statement says, I'm quoting, "The community is still undergoing a substantial rehabilitation and residents are regularly updated on the progress. While numerous maintenance issues have already been addressed, the management team at JFK Towers continues to work to address resident concerns and improve the property." So basically, that statement, saying they have owned this building, I guess, about 5 years, or managed it for about 5 years, and that they've poured a lot of money into it. Clearly, residents there would like to see more money, more time going into the building.
And probably more reporting on your end than on this story, since you're still hearing and seeing firsthand that there are some problems still inside. Well, thank you, Sarah, for joining me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find more podcasts from WRAL News on WRAL.com. Search podcast. From sports to true crime, there are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained. Thanks for listening.